In the heart of the Sahara Desert, something has been staring back at us from space for thousands of years, and we almost missed it. From the ground, it's invisible, just another stretch of endless sand and rock in Mauritania, one of Earth's most remote regions. But from orbit, the view changes everything. There, carved into the desert like a cosmic fingerprint, lies a structure so massive and so geometrically perfect that it shouldn't exist naturally. They call it the Richat Structure. Locals call it the Eye of the Sahara. But what if it's actually something else entirely? What if it's the gateway to humanity's most famous lost civilization? For decades, geologists insisted this was nothing more than a geological oddity, a collapsed dome, they said. Erosion and natural forces creating concentric circles purely by chance. But here's the problem with that explanation. The rings are too perfect, the measurements too precise, and the location. It matches Plato's description of Atlantis with disturbing accuracy. In 2023, something changed. New satellite technology revealed anomalies beneath the sand that ground-penetrating radar couldn't explain. Geometric patterns, underground voids, structures that align too perfectly with the rings above to be accidental. The kind of precision that suggests intelligent design on a scale we've never seen before. Could the Eye of the Sahara be what remains of Atlantis? Or is it something even older? A gateway built by a civilization lost to time, buried under centuries of desert sand, waiting to be rediscovered. Tonight, we're crossing the threshold into one of archaeology's most controversial mysteries. Because the more scientists study the Richat structure, the less their natural formation theory makes sense. And the evidence that's been dismissed for decades, it's about to become impossible to ignore. This isn't just about finding a lost city. It's about rewriting everything we thought we knew about human civilization. Because if this really is Atlantis, then history as we know it is incomplete. And the gateway to the truth has been open all along, staring up at us from the desert floor. The Richat structure wasn't discovered until 1965, and only because astronauts happened to look down at the right moment. During the Gemini 4 mission, astronauts James McDivitt and Ed White were photographing Earth's surface when they spotted something extraordinary over West Africa. A massive bullseye pattern in the Sahara, visible even from orbit. The structure measured nearly 50 kilometers in diameter, composed of multiple concentric rings that formed an almost perfect circle in the middle of nowhere. At first, NASA scientists assumed it had to be an impact crater. What else could create such a perfect circular pattern? But when geologists finally reached the site years later, they found something that didn't fit. There was no impact debris, no shocked quartz, no evidence of the violent collision that should have created a crater this size. Instead, they found layers of sedimentary rock, sandstone, limestone, dolomite, arranged in rings that shouldn't form naturally in such precise geometric patterns. The structure sits in the Adrar Plateau, completely flat, showing none of the uplift or deformation typical of dome structures. And most puzzling of all, the rings alternate between ridges and valleys with mathematical regularity, as if following a deliberate design. The official explanation settled on erosion. Geologists proposed that this was once a dome that collapsed and eroded over millions of years, with different rock layers wearing away at different rates to create the ring pattern we see today. Case closed. But here's where that explanation falls apart. In 2018, a team from the University of Paris used advanced 3D modeling to analyze the structure's geometry. What they found was unsettling. The rings aren't just vaguely circular, they're precise to a degree that natural erosion can't explain. The spacing between rings follows mathematical patterns. The overall diameter, when measured exactly, comes to 23.5 kilometers from the outermost visible ring to the center. That number should mean nothing. But to anyone familiar with Plato's writings about Atlantis, it's impossible to ignore. In his dialogues Timaeus and Critias, Plato described Atlantis as a city built in concentric rings, alternating bands of land and water surrounding a central island. He gave specific measurements. The outermost ring, according to Plato's account, measured approximately 127 stadia in diameter. Convert ancient Greek stadia to modern measurements, and you get almost exactly 23.5 kilometers, the same size as the Richat Structure. Coincidence? Possibly. But there's more. Plato described Atlantis as located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, the ancient name for the Strait of Gibraltar. He said it was on a plain near the ocean, surrounded by mountains to the north. The Richat Structure sits just 500 kilometers inland from the Atlantic coast of Mauritania, on a plateau surrounded by mountains to the north. Every detail Plato described, the size, the concentric rings, the location relative to the Atlantic, even the nearby mountains, matches the Richat Structure with accuracy that's becoming increasingly difficult to dismiss as mere coincidence. And then came the satellite data that changed everything. In 2023, a geophysical survey team commissioned high-resolution ground-penetrating radar scans of the Richat Structure, using technology that didn't exist even 5 years ago. What they discovered beneath the sand has remained largely unpublished, but the leaked data has sent shockwaves through alternative archaeology communities. The radar revealed something extraordinary. Beneath the visible rings on the surface, there are additional structures underground. Not random geological formations, but geometric patterns that align precisely with the rings above. Rectangular voids, linear features that suggest walls or foundations, and most intriguing of all, what appears to be a network of channels radiating from the center in a spoke-like pattern. Dr. Samir Osmanagic, yes, the same researcher investigating the Bosnian pyramids, visited the site in 2019 and took electromagnetic readings around the structure. His equipment detected anomalies in the electromagnetic field, particularly near the center of the formation. The readings suggested the presence of dense material beneath the surface that doesn't match the surrounding sandstone bedrock. But it's the precision of the rings themselves that raises the most questions. Geological processes are chaotic by nature. Erosion doesn't create perfect circles. Rivers meander. Wind sculpts random patterns. Yet the Richat Structure's rings maintain their circular shape with remarkable consistency. When measured using satellite imagery, the deviation from perfect circularity is less than 3% across a diameter of 50 kilometers. That's a level of geometric precision that would be impressive even for modern civil engineering. Dr. Robert Schoch, the geologist famous for his controversial redating of the Sphinx, examined the Richat data in 2021 and published a paper noting that while the structure is clearly composed of sedimentary rock, the pattern of erosion is anomalous and warrants further investigation. His analysis suggested that while the rocks themselves are natural, their arrangement and the selective erosion pattern that revealed the rings could have been enhanced or directed by human activity. Selective erosion following human modification, Schoch wrote, could produce exactly the kind of precision we observe here. In other words, what if the Richat Structure started as a natural geological formation, but was then modified by an ancient civilization? What if they recognized this natural ring pattern and built upon it, using the existing geology as a foundation for something far more elaborate. This would explain why the structure is clearly made of natural rock, yet displays geometric precision beyond what erosion alone should create. The rocks are real. The layers are natural. But the final form, the mathematical precision of the rings, the exact measurements matching Plato's description, that could be the result of ancient engineering working with natural materials. And there's more evidence supporting this theory. In 1999, a French archaeological team discovered tool marks on some of the exposed rock faces within the structure. The marks showed signs of deliberate shaping, not natural weathering. The team also found pottery fragments and stone tools in the area dating back over 12,000 years, proving that humans not only lived in this region during the last ice age, but were actively working stone 12,000 years ago. That's the exact time frame Plato gave for the destruction of Atlantis, approximately 9,600 BC, or 11,600 years before his time. The timeline matches, the location matches, the measurements match, the concentric ring design matches. And now evidence suggests ancient humans were living here, working with stone, during the exact period when Atlantis supposedly existed. At what point does coincidence become evidence? But the most compelling discovery wasn't in the rocks or the radar, it was in the water. Here's what mainstream geology can't explain. The Richat Structure sits in one of the driest places on Earth. Today, it's surrounded by nothing but desert for hundreds of kilometers. Yet geological surveys have found evidence that this region was once lush, green, and surrounded by water. Core samples taken from the area show layers of marine sediment, evidence that the region was once near or even partially submerged by the ocean. The Sahara wasn't always a desert. Between 12,000 and 5,000 years ago, North Africa experienced what climatologists call the African humid period. The region had rivers, lakes, and vegetation. It was habitable. It was thriving. And then, suddenly, it ended. Around 5,000 years ago, the climate shifted. The rain stopped. The lakes dried up. The green Sahara became the desert we know today. Any civilization that existed here would have been buried under advancing sand dunes, lost to time. But what if that civilization left something behind before it vanished? In 2024, a team of researchers using LiDAR technology, the same technology that recently revealed hidden Mayan cities beneath jungle canopy, conducted unauthorized scans of the Richat area. The data was never officially published, but portions leaked online show something extraordinary. Beneath the sand, approximately 12 kilometers from the center of the Richat Structure, LiDAR detected what appears to be a large rectangular formation. The dimensions suggest a structure roughly 200 meters long and 80 meters wide, buried under several meters of sand. The angles are precise. The edges are straight. This isn't a rock formation, it's a building foundation. And it's aligned perfectly with the center of the Richat rings. Even more intriguing, the leaked LiDAR data shows what appears to be a straight pathway, like an ancient road, connecting this buried structure to the center of the Richat formation. The pathway maintains its width and direction for over 10 kilometers, cutting directly through the concentric rings as if it was built to provide access to the heart of the structure, a gateway, a passage, an entrance to something beneath the eye. The researcher who leaked the data, using the pseudonym Sahara I-23, posted analysis suggesting that the rectangular structure could be what Plato described as the Temple of Poseidon, the central building of Atlantis, which according to the ancient text was located on the central island of the ringed city. They're not looking because they don't want to find it, the post read. If this is confirmed as artificial, it rewrites human history. And there are people who have built entire careers on the current timeline. They can't let that fall apart. The post was deleted within 48 hours. The researcher hasn't been heard from since. But the data remains, circulating in alternative archaeology circles, raising questions that mainstream institutions refuse to address. If there are artificial structures beneath the Richat structure, why isn't anyone digging? Why isn't there an official excavation? Why does one of the most intriguing archaeological sites on Earth remain largely ignored by academic institutions? The answer might lie in what acknowledgement would mean. If the Richat structure is Atlantis, or even remnants of an advanced pre-Saharan civilization, it would prove that sophisticated human societies existed thousands of years before the Sumerians, before the Egyptians, before any civilization currently recognized by mainstream archaeology. It would mean our entire understanding of human development is wrong. That advanced civilizations rose and fell long before recorded history. That the story of human progress isn't a straight line from primitive to modern, but a cycle, civilizations reaching heights of knowledge and technology, then collapsing, leaving behind only mysterious ruins that we mistake for natural formations. And perhaps most unsettling of all, it would mean that Plato wasn't writing fiction. He was recording history. Atlantis was real. And we've been staring at its remains from space for nearly 60 years. The gateway to the truth isn't hidden. It's open. We've just been refusing to walk through it. Today, the Richat structure remains largely unexplored. Despite its unique characteristics, despite the mounting evidence of human activity, despite satellite data revealing underground anomalies, no major archaeological expedition has been mounted to properly investigate the site. The official position remains unchanged. Natural geological formation, nothing more. But the questions keep multiplying. Why does its geometry match Plato's description with such precision? How did ancient erosion create rings with less than 3% deviation from perfect circularity across 50 kilometers? What explains the underground structures revealed by ground-penetrating radar? Why were tool marks and 12,000-year-old pottery fragments found at a site that's supposedly just natural rock? And most importantly, why is no one looking deeper? Three competing theories attempt to explain the Richat structure. The mainstream geological explanation claims it's an eroded dome structure, nothing more. This theory requires accepting that random erosion created mathematical precision, that the matching measurements with Plato's Atlantis are pure coincidence, and that the underground anomalies detected by radar are simply misinterpreted data. The second theory proposes it was a natural formation that ancient humans recognized and modified, building upon the existing rings, using them as a foundation for a city that has since been buried by desert sand. This theory acknowledges both the natural rock layers and the impossible precision, suggesting human engineering enhanced what nature began. The third theory is the most controversial, that this is Atlantis, exactly as Plato described it. That an advanced civilization built this ringed city over 12,000 years ago, during the African humid period, when the Sahara was green and habitable. That the city thrived for thousands of years before climate catastrophe, the end of the humid period, forced its abandonment. That the civilization collapsed, the desert advanced, and the greatest city of the ancient world was swallowed by sand, leaving only its geometric skeleton visible from space. Which theory is correct? The answer lies beneath the sand, waiting for someone brave enough to dig. But here's what we know for certain. The Richat Structure is not what we've been told it is. Whether it's Atlantis or something else entirely, this site holds secrets that could fundamentally change our understanding of human history. The eye in the Sahara has been staring at us for millennia, waiting, watching, and perhaps waiting for us to finally look back.